Welcome back to my School of Game Design and Theory. Last episode I introduced the notion of serious games and complicated that notion by explaining several of the ways we can understand games as serious. Today, I want to provide some background on competitive games. In a sense, all games are competitive. When we play a game like Tetris or Super Mario, we are playing against a clock, against our previous high score, against the constraints of the game rules, and so on. So in a way, all games emphasize competition, but what I'm curious about is games where players compete against other players. Last episode I mentioned the games StarCraft and Counter-Strike. These are only two of the many competitive video games, and they represent only two genres of competitive games, the real-time strategy and the first-person shooter. But these games are also two of the most popular platforms for esports. The players that compete in these games come from across the globe, from the United States to Germany to Korea and nearly everywhere in between. Like competitive game has multiple meanings, so too does competitive player. First, players can play a game without being competitive. While all games are competitive, some players simply do not play to win the game. They play for alternative purposes, or for purposes which the game does not categorize as winning, but the player does. Second, players can be competitive without playing to win. And this is a tricky concept that we will return to later when we look at David Sirlin's essay called Play to Win. Third, players who play to win aren't always or only professional players. That's right. You didn't misunderstand my robotized voice, I said professional players. We can define professional players in a variety of ways, from players who are sponsored to players who qualify for tournaments to players who win prizes at a tournament, and these definitions are not mutually exclusive. For those of my viewers unfamiliar with competitive gaming, it may come as a shock to you that players can be considered professional, or that they may be sponsored. It may come as an even bigger shock that in Korea, professional StarCraft players are salaried, and what's more, they are treated the way professional baseball players are in America. Major companies like Microsoft are even getting into the competitive game scene by sponsoring teams in esports platforms like World of Warcraft. And while American pro gamers don't yet have the groupies and fan bases the Koreans do, esports is gaining traction because of the growing culture of video game players at the national and global level. Well, that about wraps it up for this episode. Thanks for stopping by, and please make sure to subscribe and leave some comments. I will try to answer a question or two every episode. Until next time, keep on gaming.